Welcome to Corwin's Leaders Coaching Leaders podcast with host Peter DeWitt. This podcast is from education leaders for education leaders. Every week, Peter and our guests get together to share ideas, put research into practice, and ensure every student is learning, not by chance, but by design.
Hey, Peter.
Hey, Tanya. Good to see you.
Yeah, so nice to be with you here on season 3.
Yeah.
And we've got some super heavy hitters and rock stars in this conversation. If you want to know what it is to lead with courage, this is the podcast session for you.
Yeah, when I remember when Michael and Mark Edwards, Michael Fullen, I feel like he's like Celine or Cher. I can just say Michael. Name. I can say Michael and everybody knows what I'm talking about.
We'll have to figure out how we can help to change it from Michael, though.
But I remember when Michael Fullen and Mark Edwards were working on Spirit Work and the Science of Collaboration. I was very interested in all of that because it's such a unique title. So within the podcast, I've been able to ask them about what Spirit Work means. So people who are listening will be able to get that. But also just having 2 practicing superintendents in very large schools, like Dr. Joris Ray, is in Shelby County, and it's like, I think he said the 21st or 23rd largest school district in the country. Dr. Marty Polio is in Jefferson County Public Schools, and that's like the 29th largest school district in the country. I mean, these are very large school districts. So I'm looking forward to people hearing this podcast because it's all about trying to focus on positivity and how you do that despite all the challenges we face. So I'm excited for people to hear this. Marty Polio, Joris Ray, Michael Fullen, Mark Edwards, welcome to the Leaders Coaching Leaders podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Hello.
It's great to have all of you on here. So Michael, I want to start off because, the basis of this conversation is going to be around one of your newest books, which is what you co-authored with Mark Edwards on Spirit Work and the Science of Collaboration. So what's sort of the big picture? Because Spirit Work is kind of an interesting title. So where did that title actually come from?
Well, it came from Mark initially. It was called Big Spirit was the first phrase we used. And I was a bit ambivalent about it because of the history with indigenous people and tribes and all those issues. But as we checked it out with people, it became more prominent. And I think it became more prominent because it's about humanity, and humanity is up for grabs right now these days. We all know that. It turned out coincidentally that was the case. So the first thing we want to know, it's really about moral purpose, except to me, it's moral purpose put in dynamic times where the future of humanity is at stake. So it's about, and none of the superintendents can speak for themselves, but none of them use that phrase spirit. But as soon as they heard it, I think all 8 of them just said, yeah, that's it. And it was it because it was the future. So I think that's really crucial. It's moral purpose, except with now in 2022 terms, it's much more powerful. It connects to everything. It's about the spirit of leadership. And then collaboration, it's not a free floater collaboration. Margaret Wheatley pointed that out in the foreword. She said, well, there's no distinction to me. When I talk Spirit Work, I talk collaboration. It's all fused, and that's absolutely the case. So I think that we thanks to Mark and the superintendents in question, we just hit something at the right time, and it created itself before our very eyes.
Thank you. And, Michael, I've always been a big fan and admirer of the moral purpose. And we know that that's certainly something we have to tap into these days as well. But Mark Edwards, so one of the things that we're trying to do within the podcast is develop a common language and a common understanding. We know we've got a lot of words in education like student engagement and growth mindset, and I think they mean different things to different people. And I think some teachers or even some school administrators will hear you say collaboration. They think, oh gosh, here we go, collaboration. So could you talk a little bit about what collaboration actually means as far as within the Spirit Work?
Sure, be glad to. And again, it's an honor to be here, and I'm excited about our work, Spirit Work, but I'm also excited about illuminating the great live definition by George Ray and Marty Polio. I know that when you hear collaboration, you say, well, no, that's not again, over and over and over. But I think it's important to put it in context of spirit work. And as we were listening and learning from some excellent leaders around the country, Dr. Ray, Dr. Polio being two of them, we heard spirit. Whether they said it or not, we heard it, and you could feel it. In their sense, whether Dr. Polio talking about positivity or Dr. Ray talking about home spirit, but that sense of building that into this collaborative network of building and learning and working together. And I think you have to couple it with the context of today, the immense need for institutional nurturance, the type of nurturance. When you talk to Dr. Ray, you talk to Dr. Polio, over and over, you hear that nurturance coming through. And it's not just nurturance for students, it's for families, it's for communities.
Dr. Ray, I want to go to you because in your section in the book, it starts off by saying the heart of leadership, which I thought was really powerful when I was reading that. And I'm also calling you Dr. Ray because it says, when Michael Fullen and Mark Edwards write that everyone calls you Dr. Ray, I want to make sure I call you Dr. Ray because I do everything Michael Fullen tells me to do. So when you're talking about the heart of leadership and you were talking about why is leadership mentoring so important, can you talk a little bit about that and how you do that within Shelby County?
I told Mark this. I grew up Apostolic Pentecostal, and my parents had strong faith values, and many of which really shaped my leadership career. But you often hear me say, "This is hard work," but this is hard work, and you have to have the right heart when approaching the work. Everything we do, it has to be the pinnacle of what's best for children. And as a leader, when I do hire, I want to hire very smart people, yes, but I want to hire people with the heart for people. And that's so important when you lead a large organization. Memphis Shelby County Schools is the largest school district in the state and the 23rd largest in the nation. So when we go out, I want folks to feel the energy and the spirit of collaboration and us all working together for a common purpose. But it starts with leading with love.
I'm going to come back to that for all four of you because there's been this really big push against social emotional learning. But Marty, I want to go to you. You're in Jefferson County Public Schools, and you're if I remember correctly, the 29th largest school district in the country. So both of you are leading very large schools. But in the book, it talks about positivity prevails, but you call yourself the surprise superintendent. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did because, I've been in this district for 25 years, 20 of them in schools. I've been in every position you could have in a school, almost in this district, from teacher to coach to athletic director, assistant principal, 10 years as principal. So I've run the gamut of positions that you can run. And I'll be honest, I never at all thought of myself as being the superintendent. I love being a principal. I love being a school leader, developing that positive culture. We're using different words, but we're all saying the same thing when we talk about hard work or culture or positivity or spirit. I mean, it is really that same thing we're all grasping at, that it's tough to, you try to figure out how do you put that in a bottle and share that with other people. But I really was not expecting. We had a vacancy for superintendent here and a couple people turned it down. And in a district our size, very rarely, if ever, do you see someone go from a building principal to a superintendent. Usually it's central office progression. So I did that. I was fortunate enough that I was pretty good at acting and faking how to be a superintendent for about 6 to 8 months, maybe still a little bit. I mean, we're all learning all the time. But, I think that, when in this position, I say it would be really hard to just go to a random school district where you're not invested in this. I'm so invested in this school district, so invested in this community. You know, the kids I see every day that it's hard for me to remember what school they were at with me, but I talk to them and then I ask them when they graduated. Then I remember and we talk about some old times, or all of the teachers in this district that I've worked with. And it's hard to imagine doing this difficult job if you didn't have that true care and love for the district and the people in your community.
I think this to me is just such a fantastic conversation because, you know, Michael, you wrote a guest blog for my Finding Common Ground blog for Education Week a month or so ago on reasons to be positive. And, I think that's such a great way. I love that you were pushing that conversation because I feel like we turn on TV and there's a lot of negativity. So when we're talking about, reasons to be positive, I had a friend that posted on Facebook yesterday that there's somebody running for a board, they're a board candidate in upstate New York where I live. It's actually in my former school district where I used to be a school leader. And one of the things that the person wrote is that they want to get back to academics and they want to stop this whole idea of social emotional learning in schools. And it sounds like with Spirit Work, there's that perfect blend of academics and social emotional learning. So what do you say, Michael, to people who kind of come up and say, well, we don't have time for social emotional learning. We just have to focus on academics. Where does Spirit Work fit into that conversation?
On your question, we work in deep learning. We do not use the term SEL. It is a distraction. It's not, the neuroscience, which we're central to, and we have a neuroscientist on our team. The cognitive, the social, and the emotional is all part of learning. It's part of the brain. It's part of the body. It's all part of the spirit. It's all integrated. So you don't need to differentiate. If you start differentiating, you get into piecemealness. And piecemealness is the worst thing you can do for system change.
I was reading a chapter in a book on contemporary theories of learning, and they were talking about it's very Western to be able to separate the learning from just being about the mind, because other philosophies are that it's a whole body experience and it's not just one. So I really appreciate that. Dr. Ray, I want to go to you because, you and Dr. Polio are practicing superintendents right now in very large districts. And there is this whole idea of like book banning and everything that's going on, critical race theory, like all of this stuff that I think can sometimes also be distractions to the good work that you're trying to do. So how do you have that heart in mind where the Spirit Work is concerned and continue your focus? Like even with Michael saying that, it could be 6 reasons to be pessimistic instead of optimistic, but I love the optimistic view. How do you continue for all of those principals, school leaders, district leaders that are going to be listening, who are getting pressure from their boards and from their community and stuff? How do you continue moving forward with your eyes on what matters when you have all of these other distractions that are going on? So Dr. Ray, could you go with that first?
At the end of the day, it's about keeping your focus on children and doing what's best for children. I'm an academician, not a politician. So I'm not going to get caught up in what's popular. I'm going to do what's best for children. I think back during the pandemic, our governor wanted to force me to open schools. We had a public fight. And first of all, let me say the governor and I, we normally on the same page when it comes to educating children, but we differ. And my children here stay in multi-generational homes, probably 900 square feet. And I had to look out for the safety and well-being of our children. So critical race theory, banning books and, all of that, we stay focused on doing what's best for children. And as a leader, you're going to make tough decisions and you're going to have people upset. I think about here, when I didn't allow my student athletes to play sports, one of the toughest decisions I had to make as a leader, because sports, really bind this community together. And I remember, I had threats Uh, you know, folks coming to my home threatening me, sending all kind of text messages and emails of threats and how they were going to get me. But at the end of the day, you have to stand tall. And what I said during that moment, you know, I love sports more than anyone, but I love my student athletes more. And as a leader, you have to stand tall, you have to stand alone, but you always have to keep children first. But let me say this, when you do that, people in the community, they'll respect you and they'll stand behind you. I'm a product of this school district. I went from student to superintendent here. And I love this community. And one thing, you may disagree with me, but you would never question my heart for the work, and you would never question where I always stand. And the same as my team. We believe in our children. So um, as far as book banning, CRT, and here they're trying to pass a law, say you can't say gay, all of that, right? All the LGBTQ hate that we're experiencing. We're gonna always do what's best for children. May not be politically correct or what some may want me to do, because Memphis Shelby County Schools, we are unique. We are a blue county in a red state. So, all of that's unimportant. What's most important is, how can this help children? Will my children benefit from it? Is it the best thing to do for children? And when you lead that way with children in mind, you can never go wrong.
That's very well said. So, Dr. Polio, off air before we started, you were talking about the book banning piece with the LGBTQ community, and I think it was an interesting example of spirit work, actually, because of the fact that you said that you have actually read all of the books that they were trying to say were pornographic and they were trying to ban. I think that's a perfect example of spirit work right there, as a superintendent, to be able to do that. Can I ask you why you did that?
Yeah, I'd like to, first of all, I'll say this. Let me follow up on Dr. Ray's comments a little bit about leadership. First and foremost, I think if you're going to be a great leader today, you have to turn off social media. I mean, because you have to live by the principles with which you believe and you lead, and what your North Star is. And if I'm being influenced by what people are saying on social media, I'm not able to do that. I can tell you this: last night on 60 Minutes, I watched the whole piece on President Zelensky in Ukraine. And I pretty much said, man, that's a leader right there. If that guy can do this, I can show up here and do this today and be a leader during difficult times. So, it was one of those things. But for me, it's important, no matter what, to be educated and informed on the issues, but follow, the principles, the guiding principles with which I'll believe. I'll give an example of this. I have believed my entire, and this goes back to the question around really deeper learning. Research shows that right now in the United States, the kids' engagement in school, I mean, the true engagement in learning and love of learning, peaks at the 3rd grade and goes downhill all the way through the 11th and 12th grade. And so I have to say, our current structure of schooling and education is actually disengaging students from learning. What we do is actually harming kids in their love for learning and their engagement in learning. And so when I hear, we've got to go back and, focus on academics alone, like they're individual pieces, I think, we've been there and done that before. And all we are doing is harming kids, and specifically harming kids that are at-risk population, in poverty, students of color. These are the students that are being impacted the most. So what we need to focus on is engaging kids and, having really a passion and a love for learning. And I know that's all, that touchy-feely sense of thing, but we can do that in schools. I've seen it. I walk into a school building. We've all seen it that have been in a school, everyone on this call. When there is that spirit in a school, you walk in there and you sense something that is just different. And what it is, it's the spirit of the educators in the building. And so I've always said, when we talk, unfortunately, in the United States, we have this narrative, bad school, good school.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's not about test scores. It's about the attitude and beliefs that adults bring to school every single day for children. And when they do that, magic happens in a school. And so, I believe leadership is having guiding principles based on, obviously, research and the things that impact kids successfully, but sticking to those no matter what that is, and making sure to educate yourself and inform yourself on all the issues as well. But social media is not the place to do that.
Yeah,
Peter, could I make one point? I don't want it to be missed.
Yeah.
We're seeing great leaders. We're hearing great leaders here. They're in our book. But I want to make one point, which is that these were not individualistic leaders. They built teams.
Mm-hmm.
They really built teams. What does that mean? It means you get it right in the short run. You get more power in the short run. But when you leave, you're succeeded by others who have already been leaders like them that they've cultivated. So I want the continuity of leadership. Leadership is about doing the right thing, and it's about, at the end of your time, having developed a number of leaders otherwise who can carry on beyond you. So the team building for the short run, the team building for the long run is absolutely crucial.
And Michael, that's something you've been saying for a long time. And I also think much to Marty's point, the whole idea of the learning piece, that's why the work that you and Joanne Quinn and your team that you have, that you're doing at the Deep Learning Lab is just so important. Dr. Ray, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I agree with Dr. Polio's comment. Let me say this. I empower my team to love, right? And not only that, with the whole social emotional learning piece, that's ingrained in the fabric of our school district. Maslow talks about the basic levels, and you have to have the food, water, shelter, safety, pretty much to move up that ladder. And in our school district, we have to do all of those things just to undergird the learning. We have some of the poor zip codes right here in Memphis, Shelby County in the entire nation. And it's my job as a leader to figure out everything we can do to ensure that our students come to school well prepared and safe. So as far as social emotional learning, I'm with Dr. Polio. That's something that's ingrained in our school district. That's something we are very intentional about. But not only that, I empower all of my leaders to love our students. And it starts with just as something as simple as building that positive relationship. Hey, good morning. Or did you see the game last night? And just to find that common, a strand where you really tug on the heart of children till they know that you care. And once students know that you care, that's when they can really open up and you can figure out what's the real issue and the root cause of any other problems that they're experiencing at that time. Then you can really get to the heart of who they are as a person. And once you do that, you can teach them anything you need to teach them.
Mm-hmm. Mark Edwards, thank you. I'm Mark Edwards. I want to go to you for the last question. What do you want people to get from reading Spirit Work? What are you hoping for when they read through?
Sure, I hope, and I do believe that readers will be inspired. There are 8 different districts with distinctly different challenges and different stories, even though Memphis and Louisville and Jefferson County are similar in size. They're very different in the challenges they face. But I think being inspired by the work, and every superintendent in this book leads with spirit and love and faith and hope, and they lead by example. And one thing I think is so important: each district has been distinguished by their sense of deep efficacy for everyone in the community. It's well defined that we care about everyone. And I think that the combination of the focus on deep spirit, and then at the same time having that focus on collaborative growing and learning. And one of the things that as you talk to each superintendent, whether you're talking to Joris or Marty, you're inspired by their authenticity. They're not repeating something they heard. They're saying what they believe, and communities are inspired by leaders who say and stick to what they believe.
So Marty Pollio, Joris Ray, Michael Fullen, and Mark Edwards, thank you very much. First of all, for just contributing this to the world. Michael, you know, I've always been a big fan, and you've been a mentor. You know, just the fact that you want to focus on the positivity and keep that out there, I think is so important. And this book definitely does that well. We need more of this. But thank you all for being a part of the Leaders Coaching Leaders podcast.
Thank
you so much for having me.
Hi, everybody. That's been great. Next phase is right in our hands. So good luck, everybody.
So Tanya, what do you think? Was it okay?
I thought it was tremendous, as I figured it would be. And there's so many things that stood out, but what I really loved was how they reminded us that it's not one thing or the other. So often the pendulum swings so far in education, and people can get, even if they're well-meaning, polarized. And that we say whole child, but this session really talked about whole child and just whole people, that you can't teach parts of people. You've got to teach all of them. And I think that really came through in the spirit of this work.
Yeah, I think, you know, with Michael talking about that at the Deep Learning Lab, they don't talk about social emotional learning because when you're talking about learning, it's whole body. And that was a great thing to say. But also what I appreciated, and I don't want to stereotype, but when you've got a couple of superintendents from the South where a majority of like the book banning conversations are happening, and actually Dr. Ray talked about, you know, the don't say gay bill and stuff in his state. When you've got these two superintendents who are not afraid to have these conversations, and when Marty was talking about how he read the books that were on the banning list, like that to me is just a powerful image. When you've got these two leaders of these huge school districts that are saying, no, like I've read the book, or no, that's not good for kids. We're not going to do those kind of things. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Dr. Ray that said, you know, sometimes leadership is about standing up and being alone. And I think that that's true, but I also think that there's so many people that are watching him do that he's really not alone when he makes those kind of decisions. So to me, this was just a really powerful conversation with four really amazing leaders.
Yeah, very bold leaders. And just a small reminder to limit your social media. Everyone, focus on your families and your students and your stakeholders. They'll give you just about everything you need.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, Tanya, thank you. This was a wonderful one. I look forward to many, many more.